Hey, kids, it's the Matt Murphy Radio Show underway for another day and another week. Happy to have you with us on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We've lots to get into, and I hope you're able to spend the next 3 hours with us. Really all day long, information-fueled, opinion-driven, news talk radio for the masses on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Allow me to inundate you with the pleasantries, and we'll get everything lumbering under our own weight. It is Monday, March 11th, 2024. It's episode 528 of our proceedings today on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I'm happy to be here. I hope you are as well. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope it was full of fun and frivolity, and you got to hug your loved ones and do some fun stuff with us. Bell K is behind the glass, making sure that everything that comes out of our speakers sounds as good as humanly possible. We appreciate him. Mac Morey will be along directly, and we appreciate him as well. You can communicate and be a part of the team by hitting us up on the Members Nutrition Super Text line or giving us a call. I always appreciate turning a monologue into a dialogue. Those numbers, I give them often and as quickly as possible just to keep you on your toes. 615-737-9986. 615-737-9986 if you'd like to opine in a way that the masses would appreciate. Episode 528 is presented on a multitude of platforms, to include, obviously, the radio dial, 99.7 FM. You can find us anywhere you stream music or information. Just hit us up at Supertalk 99.7 WTN on your streaming platform of your choosing. We always invite you to download our app and take us wherever you go. And then, of course, the television side of things up and running on Supertalk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. Bell K is called Headless Bell on our radio broadcast because he chooses not to participate in on the Supertalk television side of things. He has his own reasons for that, which no doubt include felonious acts of long ago. For these reasons, I have empowered him with the duty, the responsibility, the toil of entitling the episodes. And episode 528 is entitled,
Your brand new Housing and Urban Development Secretary, Matt Murphy.
It's me. Right before we come on air, there's an alert that hits my phone. And the alert says, cabinet member of Biden administration resigns. What was your immediate? Well, this
is going to be juicy.
Well, I immediately thought Lloyd Austin, right? Health related.
I figured that, or I was hoping
Defense.
it was Pete Buttigieg because he doesn't seem to do anything but pimp for Biden.
And what did I say to you after you said, "Ooh, I hope it's Pete Buttigieg"?
No, we wouldn't get that lucky.
No, you're not going to get that lucky. It's someone that I've never heard of, who's over the Department of Housing and Urban Development.
And now you have her job.
Which is, by the way, the federal government's way of saying that liberal leaders in major metropolitan areas can't do their jobs. And so the federal government has to step in and attempt to assist them through federal funding in doing their jobs. That's what housing and urban development's all about, by the way. Anyway, so there's big breaking news as we come on the airwaves. You have a good weekend? I mean,
I did, yeah.
Yeah?
I don't think I was awake for more than 3 hours on Saturday. It was awesome.
Oh, good for you. I know how much you value and love your sleep. I'm happy for you.
It's less that I value the sleep. It's more that I resent having to be awake.
I don't. Well, you just get angry at the world, angry at yourself, angry at a lack of tequila. What?
Don't want to be conscious.
Okay. Well, I mean, I've told you 100 times. Anytime that you need any help, just call me. I'll come over and knock you on the head. And
you're such a giver.
I am. I try to help you out as best I can. I was probably the one person currently listening to this radio show and participating in it that watched the Oscars last night. Did you watch any of that?
I did not. I was so disinterested in actually seeing all those people talk that if I wanted to know who won, I just went and Googled real quick and I checked the updated list of winners.
I'm a little put off by it. I'm a grown man and I don't really care about award shows anymore. And I certainly don't care about over-politicized award shows, but I will say this wasn't that. They made one or two jokes. I think Katie Britt got a mention, although she did not get a mention by name. They said something about the State of the Union. And then at the end of the broadcast, apparently, he read a social media post from Donald Trump because Donald Trump is in all of these people's heads and he lives and breathes in there. He ought to pay rent. But other than that, it was not a politicized broadcast in any fashion. I mean, not like we've seen some of the bad. From what I saw, and I'm not pretending that I saw the whole thing. I was walking through the house doing other things. It was on in the background.
Well, we did discover that if Trump wins the next election, we've lost De Niro. He's gone. He's going to be taken out.
And there's another reason to vote for Donald Trump, because Robert De Niro is an insufferable. I can't say any of those words. I thought about SOB.
Robert,
he's just
give us another Goodfellas, and we'll give you a pass for another year.
Just an absolute insufferable human being, and I'm glad that he did not win any awards, and I'm glad that any movie that he was associated with did not win any awards last night. I don't really care about the awards portion of the ceremony, except to say this, and this is what annoys me, that I like movies, and I think there's still value in movies. There's value in television shows, and there's value in movies from an entertainment perspective. And let me tell you, if you don't believe that there are, or if you are of the belief, misguided as it may be, that there's nothing, no good, nothing positive or good that comes out of Hollywood anymore, I encourage you to go watch The Holdovers with Paul Giamatti. E and I saw the movie last week, and it's fabulous.
That was the one award that I was kind of bummed it didn't go the way I wanted, because I really wanted to see Paul Giamatti win and then thank Howard Stern in front of all those people.
Pig virus. Oh, he's pig vomit in the movie.
He told Howard on the air, he said, I owe everything to you, and if I win, I'm thanking you at the Oscars.
What, for casting him as Kevin Matheny?
Yeah.
I had a long conversation with Kevin Matheny once. It was like it was a 2-hour. It was fascinating, and I had a desire at one point to get into Chicago radio, or I had an opportunity 15 or so years ago to get into Chicago radio. It never would have panned out because of my accent and because of something that Matheny told me. Matheny said there are some cities that want everyone that wants to come, and there are some cities that suggest that if you weren't born there, you'll never get it and you can go to hell. And Cook County or Chicago is one of those cities, Boston being another one. And so he said they will take D talent from Cook County before they will take A-plus talent from anywhere else in the United States of America. I'm just warning you. But that led to a 2-hour conversation about his time. For those who don't know, Kevin Matheny was Howard Stern's program director in New York City at WNBC.
And they were not fans of each other.
And they were not fans of one another, as you might expect. And it was real. And it was serious. Matheny said that his biggest frustration about Howard's movie is that Howard never called him pig vomit. He called him pig virus.
Well, it was an amalgamation of two different program directors, which is why they did that.
Well, Matheny believed before he died, because Matheny's passed away now. Matheny believed that Howard did that because Howard was worried that Matheny would sue him, and so they wanted to suggest the blend. But Matheny said that was all me. Every bit of that was me. So whatever. One way or the other, yes, Paul Giamatti played Kevin Matheny in the film. What was it called? Private Parts?
Private Parts.
But
in the scene where he's doing his very first interview with the Middle Eastern guy to get a job.
Oh, yeah, sure.
There's a KDF sticker on the door right behind him.
Is there really?
Yeah.
Look at you.
Old school 70s, too. Period accurate.
Oh, they probably had to look around for that one.
I think they did.
Try to get it. So, yeah. So I watched a little of that just to see if Giamatti and to see if, what's her name? Divine Joy. I don't know. I don't remember her last name. I probably should. She won Best Supporting Actress. Anyway, if you have an opportunity and have a couple of hours, I would recommend The Holdovers. It's R-rated, so it's not necessarily for the young kids. That's mostly for language and a couple of adult situations. But other than that, it is a great film with a great message to it. It's like a different type of. It's like a Dead Poet Society type of film. But anyway, you'll have to see it. If you've seen it, I think you'll enjoy it. If you've not seen it, whatever. Kathy says, Matt, what accent? You don't have an accent. I thought that, too, until I interviewed in Chicago, Illinois for a job, and They asked me if I was planning on keeping the accent or getting rid of it. I also lived in Connecticut for 9 months. And if you ever have 9 months to live, I strongly encourage you to move to Connecticut because by the time the 9 months is done, you'll want to die. And I discovered that I did, in fact, well, I guess I don't have an accent. All of those people up north have an accent. Okay, lots to get into today. Meat and potatoes of the show. We'll talk about the new policing plan in Pittsburgh, which I think Chris Hand spoke about at the beginning of his show today. It's absolutely hilarious if you've not heard about it. We'll get the Biden response to. We're going to get into a little more. Well, let me put it this way. Obviously, the reaction to whatever it was that Senator Katie Britt was doing was not good. And so over the weekend, I was inspired to find a different way to respond to Joe Biden and some of the nonsense that he was spewing on stage, especially about the subject matter involving the southern border. Katie Britt sadly allowed the presentation and the stylistic choices made in the presentation to supersede and override the message. Now, I know that I'm jaded because I know Katie Britt. I've met Katie Britt. I've sat down with her and I've talked to her, and no, she doesn't talk anything like that in normal life, obviously. But because of the way that she made certain choices in her stylistic response. I mean, she did. If her goal was to get a bit on Saturday Night Live, congratulations, Katie. You have been spoofed on Saturday Night Live. Way to go. But it was a disaster by any estimation. And I got destroyed on social media for being nice to her, saying, the liberals will destroy this. But because I've been saying that Katie Britt was a dark horse VP selection, potential. And most people apparently don't understand what the words dark horse mean because they're like, you think he's going to pick Katie Britt to be VP? That's not what I said. I said that I believe that Katie Britt is a dark horse in the selection process, meaning that she's probably fifth down on the list, but on the list nonetheless. Now, she might not be on the list after last week because of the disastrous nature of the response given by her after the State of the Union. Most of you did not see it. That's the only saving grace. She should send to Tucker Carlson a canned ham or something or another for being online while she was trying to give the response to the State of the Union because most people were watching Tucker and not Katie. But I thought, is there not a better person better able to respond to Joe Biden about the nonsense that he was talking about regarding the southern border? And I found people. As a matter of fact, I found 3 people to respond to Joe Biden and his current policy to allow anyone and everyone that wants to waltz into the United States of America to simply waltz into the United States of America. And obviously, we've already discussed his mangling of Laken Riley's name, saying Lincoln Riley as opposed to Laken Riley. There's a difference. Having to be heckled to mention her name at all and then butchering it, getting it wrong, and then going on an apology tour all weekend long. Every Democrat willing to step in front of a microphone had one message to send to the American people, and that is, we are so desperately sorry that Joe Biden described him as an illegal. Nobody's illegal. He's a human being. He's not a human being. He's a piece of walking garbage, if guilty of that which he is accused. Obviously, in a court of law, he has an opportunity to demonstrate his innocence, and his guilt must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. But the court of public opinion is not held by the same standard. And I don't consider someone who is willing to bludgeon another human being to death an equal. Do you? Do you? Well, he's a human being with rights. Shut up. It's either a miscalculation of astronomical proportions that Democrats would be willing to proclaim to the American people this fact, or they don't care. I'll get into the don't care in a moment. That they would look to the American people and with a straight face Tell them that it is more important that they discuss the idea that this individual that is accused of bludgeoning a young woman to death, an American citizen to death, that he's a human being and he should not be described in the fashion in which their own president described him. That's your focus? That's your focus? As opposed to focusing on the fact that he was here to begin with? Well, if we start digging in beneath the surface of that issue, you'll start to understand why the Joe Biden policy, or lack thereof, regarding the southern border has been such an absolute and abject disaster. There's a lot of different ways that it has been, and now there is a face to the ultimate disaster of the Biden administration policy on immigration, and that face is Laken, not Lincoln, Laken Riley. I have an update from, it's almost kind of a theme on the show today, the illegal alien stuff, because I do have an update on Alejandro Mayorkas. I'll do the full Mayorkas here in just a moment. He claims that, remember when we reported to you that they were literally flying in illegal aliens? They were boarding them in other countries and flying them into the United States of America. And you're scratching your head thinking, wait a minute. I mean, it's one thing to suggest that you can't catch them, that you're doing the best that you can. It's another thing to beg them to come to the ports of entry and allow them entry that way. Just give them a piece of paper, give them a bus pass, and send them on their way. Now we're giving them plane tickets and we're flying them into the United States of America. What the hell are we doing here? Alejandro Mayorkas has an answer for you. And we'll talk about that answer coming up a little bit later on in the show. And then there was the Bill Haggerty amendment that failed, went down in flames last week, telegraphing the true impact of A, the amount of illegal aliens that are coming into the United States of America, and B, the true purpose of the political Democrat Party regarding this issue. They want to flood the zone in blue states first and foremost to get more representation in those blue states so that they can effectively facilitate the legalization of the millions upon millions upon millions of illegal aliens currently here. That is the game plan, and it's not a conspiracy theory, folks. They say the quiet part out loud with their votes. What do I mean by all of that? I'll explain it in just a moment on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Mike says, Katie Britt is too closely tied to the establishment. I doubt Trump would ever choose her for VP after his previous term. Well, Mike, he picked Mike Pence as his vice presidential choice. And whether we like it or not, the establishment, we need their votes. And I understand where you're coming from, but Donald Trump is willing to associate himself with members of the quote-unquote establishment D.C. class as long as it furthers his agenda. If he can use these individuals for his own purposes, then so be it. He's done it with Mitch McConnell. He did it with Mike Pence. And I think he certainly could do it with Tim Scott. Kristi Noem's not establishment, although she's an elected leader out of South Dakota. She's certainly not D.C. How about this, while we're talking about VP selections? Well, there's the trouble of them being from the same states. I still don't believe that Ron DeSantis is out of the question. And I know that you would have to jump through a few hoops with regard to the electors in Florida and how to get around that provision in the law that they can't come from the same state. It's not that they can't run from the same state. It's the electors in that individual state would not count toward their election. So you would have to overcome the 29 or whatever electors that are in Florida. Anyway, lots to get into on this Monday edition of the Matt Murphy Show. I'm so glad that you've decided to join us on this March 11th on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy, and it's rainy season in the state of Tennessee. You know what I'm talking about when those storms roll through and they dump a lot of water in a short amount of time on our property and around our homes. With that in mind, I want to talk to you about rainy season when it comes to waterproofing your home, when it comes to USS, United Structural Systems. Waterproofing your home is so very important. Why? Well, obviously, water's tenacious. It doesn't stop. And if you allow it in, it will continue to come in to the point that it hurts your foundation and damages your property. You need to do something about it. What are the symptoms? Standing water in your crawl space, musty odors coming from your basement area, perhaps wood rot or signs of water damage in your home, hardwood floors, perhaps coupling or cupping. Your home might be trying to tell you something, and that something might be that there is moisture and mildew and water and everything that comes with it. It's time to make the call to the best. Call USS. Over 25,000 satisfied customers since 1994. For 30 years, they've been doing the job the right way. Give them a call today to see what they can do for you. 615-488-7855, 488-7855, or USSTN.com. That's USSTN.com for the best. Call USS. Hey, folks, it's Matt Murphy, and I want to talk with you about your health. More importantly, and more specifically, I should say, I want to talk to you about what you're doing to better your health through vitamins and supplements, because if you're paying over-the-counter prices, you're paying too much. Secondarily, do you know where those are coming from? Do you know where your vitamins or your supplements come from? I mean, many of us take them, whether it's a multivitamin or something more specific for a more specific need. But I'm here to tell you that Members Nutrition not only believes in empowering individuals to take charge of their health and their well-being through vitamins and through supplements, they believe that you can find what is right for you that can better your health without having to go through the pharmaceutical industry. And secondarily, you don't have to buy overseas. Members Nutrition started with the idea that vitamin supplements and health wellness products in the marketplace are A, overpriced, and B, come from somewhere else. They make them right here in the United States of America, and they can help assist you in whatever your need might be. The journey starts with a visit to membersnutrition.com. I encourage you to make that journey. It's a very simple one. It's a quick one, but you can dive deep into the types of things that can help benefit you in your life, whatever your issue might be. We talk about the Daily Defense Youthful Cleanse all the time because that's a great starting point to detoxify your body. Find it at membersnutrition.com. And when you stop by and when you order your vitamins and your supplements from Members Nutrition, tell them that Matt Murphy sent you. You get a great deal. Matt Murphy and Members Nutrition, partners for a better, healthy life for you and your family. It's Members Nutrition. Monica writes in, it's an interesting question, Monica. I'll try to answer it. You can find us at the Members Nutrition Super Text Line, 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. Jeff writes in, Tulsi Gabbard is a solid VP selection. I don't know that Tulsi Gabbard, I mean, I like Tulsi Gabbard a lot. I don't think that, I think Donald Trump needs to shore up conservatives. And I think if he shores up conservatives, we don't have to. I mean, I don't know what Tulsi Gabbard brings to the table that he can't get from someone that wouldn't push people away. I'm not knocking her. I just think that there are better people on the docket. Keith writes in and says they most definitely don't have that level of experience except Pompeo, and I don't trust him at all. And then Monica says, do you consider Tim Scott establishment? Well, I mean, he's in Washington, D.C., right? Tell me what Tim Scott has done that would make Tim Scott. It all depends on what your definition of establishment truly is. I don't call it establishment as much as I call it being Washingtonized. Washingtonized. And I think good people can become Washingtonized. And what I mean by that is that you find yourself in the bubble so often and for so many years that you forget what life is truly like outside of it. And everything that happens inside of the Beltway in Washington, D.C. is the most important thing in the world, on planet Earth, to them. And you believe that every action that you take, every moment of every day of your life inside Washington, D.C., is a moment by which you hold the balance of the rest of the country at your fingertips. And it's not true. It's not true. No, I'm not saying that everyone in Washington, D.C. is necessarily establishment. I just don't know of anything, and 3765 says, well, is everybody established? That's not what I'm saying. And if I'm misspeaking 3765, my goodness gracious, I'm not suggesting that everyone in Washington, D.C. is establishment. I think everyone in Washington, D.C. is in danger of being Washingtonized. And I don't know that Tim Scott has been Washingtonized, but I also don't know that Tim Scott has done anything that I would, from a declaratory standpoint, say that, well, that is going against the spirit of... Here's my standard. First and foremost, are you a part of the cabal that continues the massive level of overspending that is engaged in by both Democrats and Republicans? If you are a part of that group, if you're a part of the group that continues to overspend by hundreds of billions of dollars, trillions of dollars on an annual basis in some cases, then you've become Washingtonized. You don't understand that by doing so, you are speeding the death of the United States of America. So that's the first floor standard that I would utilize. And there are very few politicians in Washington, D.C. that go against that grain. Now, some of them vote for these things begrudgingly, and they explain themselves. And I understand we live in a complex world full of complex decision-making, but that's where I begin my analysis as to whether or not someone has become Washingtonized. I don't know that Tim Scott has become Washingtonized. And I think, and by the way, he is my go-to choice for vice president of the United States for Donald Trump. I don't know if that'll be the case. I think Donald Trump can pick anyone he wants to. It's not going to hurt or help him that significantly. I can't think of a candidate that's going to dramatically help or hurt Donald Trump for vice president. I just can't. And I'm not being flip about it. I'm being serious. Donald Trump is the sun, and everything else revolves around him. If you don't believe me, ask Jimmy Kimmel from last night's Oscars. 1233, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. For those of you who do not watch on Super Talk TV, I encourage you to do that. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. When you watch, you'll see that I've got, one, I need a haircut. Two, I've got a long mane of hair. But I don't take it for granted that I'm going to keep that for the rest of my life, and I know how bumpy my head is. And so I decided to call the best. I called PAI Medical and the We Grow Hair folks. We went through... We went through the process together. I got to know Katie and the rest of the group over at PAI Medical in Brentwood. I absolutely enjoyed my time touring the facility, and then we sat down and got down to business. They examined me and talked to me about where I was in terms of hair growth versus hair loss. And really, Katie said the only thing that I would recommend for you is to do some preventative work that will prevent any sort of thinning that might come down the road a little bit later on in your life. And I said, well, let's go. Let's make it happen. It's incredible laser therapy. It's non-invasive at all. You can find out more about this on their website at wegrowhair.com, or better yet, give them a call. Schedule an appointment today. It's a fully confidential appointment, a free private consultation, and I guarantee you they can help you wherever you are in your hair loss journey, figure out the right path and the right plan for you. They simply grow hair, which is why the website is wegrowhair.com. wegrowhair.com for the good people at PAI Medical. They've been in Nashville for over 26 years. Or better yet, give them a call. 615-376-6010. 376-6010. Super Talk 99.7 WTN 1238. One of the things I love about our time spent together between noon and 3 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN on a day-to-day basis, it is a cornucopia. It is a buffet of topic selections on a day-to-day basis. And that's just coming from me. You in the mix, either via the super text line, brought to you by Members Nutrition, or on the phone lines, and man, oh man, you never know what you're going to get. And so the Members Nutrition super text line absolutely blew up based on just a a little comment. Well, it was an offshoot of the response given by Alabama Senator Katie Britt and how it kind of missed the mark. And I have been saying over the last month or so that I thought that Katie Britt was a dark horse candidate or a dark horse potential VP candidate. And that her performance the other night might have struck her from the list. I think, and my reasoning is that I do think Donald Trump needs someone that comes from a different life experience than himself, obviously. I do think that Donald Trump needs someone that will perhaps check a few boxes from a political standpoint. I know we don't like to think in those terms, but you have to think in those terms. And Donald Trump has an affinity for the state of Alabama. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. And maybe this is because I'm so close to the forest that I see these trees. Because I lived in Alabama for 20 years. But, I mean, he went down there with a regular basis. He picked Jeff Sessions as his attorney general. Didn't work out. But I do think that it makes it much, much more unlikely. And it was already an unlikely scenario. Much more unlikely that Katie Britt would be the selection of choice. But based on my saying that, the amount of you that came out and just declare what you believe to be true with regard to vice presidential selections, some of which is just pure speculation, and you would note it on the super text line, and others are offering just out-and-out declarations. This is who it's going to be, which none of us really know. 4200 says it would blow their minds. Trump Cinema 2024. That would be kind of funny. Kathy writes in and says, I heard someone on another station suggest the possibility of Trump Jr. as a VP candidate. Well, if you want to lose the presidency, that might be a way to do it. No, I don't think it would be a loser because, once again, I don't think anyone selected would move the needle that significantly one way or the other. Once again, all things orbit around Planet Trump. Someone said Kari Lake. Kari Lake is running for United States Senate, and we need Kari Lake's we need her Senate seat in Arizona. So I don't think Kari Lake's going anywhere. I mean, you got to. I mean, I'm not poo-pooing you 8088 on the Members Nutrition Super Text line, but let's just walk through this. We need Kari Lake in the United States Senate more than Donald Trump needs her as a vice president. Does that make sense to everybody? She is not going to push him across the finish line in any way as a vice presidential candidate. But once he gets across that finish line in November, he's going to need a Republican majority in the Senate to get anything done. And so she becomes much more important in Arizona winning the Senate there than she ever would be as a vice presidential selection. Yes, Mr. K?
If he picked DJT as his VP, the talking points that the Democrats would use write themselves at that point. And it would be, family grift, and this is all about enriching the family.
That'd be a mistake.
There's no value for him there.
Yeah, I don't know what the value would be to pick a Donald Trump Jr. You hand ammunition to your political enemies so they can use that as fodder against you toward people who don't pay as much attention as we do. You galvanize in their minds that it is what they've always said it was, the beginnings of a dictatorship. I mean, can you imagine some of the nonsense that they would be spewing if you picked DJT?
We're turning into North Korea.
Yeah, so, no, there's no... These are political calculations that must come with some level of value. I do think Sarah Huckabee Sanders would be an interesting selection. She already knows Donald Trump quite well as his press secretary. She's the governor of the state of Arkansas. It really depends on how much fire she has in her belly to do that job. Condoleezza Rice has repeatedly said she has no interest in running for vice president of the United States, and I think she means it. Aaron says, what about Vivek? I think Vivek does very much have a place in the Trump administration. I think Vivek would have a place in the Trump cabinet. but I do not believe that he is a vice presidential selection. George, I want to believe you're joking, George, when you say, what about Sarah Palin? Oh, I know what George is referring to. No, George, I don't think that John McCain had a chance in hell of beating Barack Obama to begin with. I think John McCain was a sacrificial lamb. I think John McCain was searching for something that would give him that bump, and it flamed out miserably. So I understand where you're coming from, George, and that's a good point. I made the statement that I didn't think that vice presidential selections moved the needle one way or the other. Well, John McCain, and I think Sarah Palin is an idea that proves my point, George, right? Although good memory and good call, because she was a surprise selection, and she was sure as hell eye candy for a hot minute. And I like Sarah. She seems like a nice person. All of those things are all good. But if her selection was designed to get McCain out of the deficit that he found himself in and to reinvigorate his campaign in a way that would show him as a vibrant Republican candidate and not a teetering old man in the manner that the Democrats were describing him as, well, it didn't work. It didn't work. 5557 says Candace Owens would be a good pick for the job. You don't need another Donald Trump to run with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the ultimate political outsider. Donald Trump is the flamethrower. So I like Candace Owens. I wish she would come on my radio show. She lives right here in the community, and she won't come on. I don't know why. But, I do know why, because we're nothings, we're nobodies. We don't matter to her as much as some of these folks in our business would like you to believe that you do, you don't. Anyway, but I don't believe she brings enough different to the table. 1585, Carrie Lake is a long shot for the Senate? Well, how long? I disagree with you. I think with Kirsten Sinema leaving that race, that opens up voting opportunities very much. I think that benefits Carrie Lake in Arizona. I don't think it hurts her.
Have you seen the ads that her Democratic opponent is running on Twitter?
I have not.
Literally goes on in the ad. It shows the deficit he's running behind her. I'm like, really?
Well, I mean,
okay.
If you're desperate, you're desperate. I suppose. 6437 says, know your place, Murphy. I do know my place. We're low man on the totem pole for the most part. Brad says, if VP doesn't move the needle, then give me Tulsi Gabbard all day. She could easily be the first woman president and do a fantastic job. What is it about Tulsi Gabbard that people like so much? Outside of if Tulsi Gabbard called herself a Republican, nobody would like her. No conservatives would like her.
Because you could put her in a Wonder Woman outfit all day long and it would work.
I mean, I'm not knocking it. It's a genuine question. Tulsi has military experience, which is nice. She is a supporter and a believer in our United States military, which is nice for a Democrat. I just suggest that if the exact same woman changed her designation from Democrat to Republican, then I feel like the same people that tout her as a wonderful example of bipartisanship would be destroying her for being a rhino.
Yeah, she'd be a squish.
She would be just a complete squish, and you would have no use for her. Which, if that logic is consistent, then if some of the squishes would just call themselves Democrats, then conservatives would love them? I don't know. In the meantime, Joe Biden offered a spirited defense of his illegal immigration policy last week during his State of the Union address. And sadly, because of the style of the presentation, Katie Britt's response to that failure of an immigration policy got a little bit lost. But thankfully, we do have people that are willing to step up and offer a spirited response to Joe Biden with regard to his inability to do anything about the southern border. Joe Biden, it is a part of his political philosophy and his political party's governance that they have allowed millions upon millions of illegal aliens to cross the southern border, some of which are doing very bad things to very good people, American citizens. Obviously, Laken Riley is an example of that, but just one. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of other examples over the last 3 years of Biden-era immigration policy being literally deadly to people, and not just with drug overdoses and human smuggling, but literally with murder, sexual assault, rape, and other matters. And Joe Biden dismissed all of these things. And he focused over the weekend instead on apologizing, offering an apology to anyone who would listen over his use of the word illegal. Well, to respond to him, because Katie Britt did such a poor job of doing so, I present this political figure to you. I think it will be a voice familiar to you, ladies and gentlemen, in response to Joe Biden and his failure of policy on the southern border. I present to you Joe Biden.
To put it in very personal terms for a moment, Joe Biden, me, I would settle for a world in which I could worry about the same kinds of things that my parents worried about, in which I only had to worry about the grades my children got in school rather than the drugs they're being exposed to, in which I only had to worry about the prices my wife had to pay at the supermarket instead of fearing that she might get mugged by a junkie in the parking lot as she loads her groceries into the car, in which tonight I could call my mom just to wish her pleasant dreams, not for the purpose of making sure she's safe in her own home. That's the kind of world I want. That's the kind of world you deserve. In a nutshell, the president's plan doesn't include enough police officers to catch the violent thugs.
Amen.
Not enough prosecutors to convict them.
Preach,
not
Joe.
enough judges to sentence them.
Talk to him.
And not enough prison cells to put them away for a long time.
You tell him, Joe.
We disagree with the president's decision to cut back on our previous commitment to protect against drugs coming across the border.
Aye, amen.
To cut the Customs Service,
Yes.
the Coast Guard, and the Border Patrol.
Come on.
We think we should do more to stem the flow of drugs across our borders, and we think we should go one step further.
Talk to me.
Let's go after the drug lords where they live.
Whoa.
With an international strike force.
Wow.
There must be no safe haven for these narco terrorists.
I like this guy.
And they must know it. And we don't have to promise a world without worry or fear. We're not asking for that much. All we have to do together is to keep our promises and stay together. Thank you.
Huh.
I did not say that. That's not. I did not say that.
You know, sadly, if the decision makers within the Republican Party were smart, instead of overcoaching Katie Britt to the point that she came off as phony, and I don't think Katie Britt's a phony person. I think Katie Britt's heart's in the right place. Sadly, she was overcoached to the point that she's now been a source of lampoon and ridicule as opposed to getting to the meat of what she actually said. If you read her speech, it's powerful. As delivered, not so much. But that guy sounds reasonable. How sad is it? I have been saying in my life in doing this job that the new Democrats are the old Republicans. I'm sorry, I said it backwards. I always start it that way. The new Republicans are the old Democrats. The new Republicans are the old Democrats. And the new Democrats are the old socialists. And there aren't really any conservatives anymore, which is why we've made that distinction between establishment Republicans and Trump or MAGA Republicans. Republicans that don't live and breathe and die by every activity or every action that it's engaged in inside of the Beltway, which is what I mean by Washingtonized. How sad is it that Joe Biden from 35 years ago, offering a response to a speech delivered by George H.W. Bush, he sounds like today's Republicans. How sad is it that we're actually having a debate about whether or not to shut our southern border down from the drug flow and the human trafficking? 615-737-9986. Back after this. I absolutely love talking with you about Paul Winkler and everything that Paul Winkler and his team of experts do to help benefit us in our community with regard to financial investment and financial planning. And I'm proud to talk with you once again about Paul and what he does. First and foremost, I remind you that I get paid when this announcement airs. It's important for me to mention that mainly because federal regulations require it. But I don't get paid to be a client of Paul's, and I am a client of Paul's along with my wife. Why? Because he starts with education. It's so important. Investment isn't like anything else we do. When you think of hiring a contractor, you typically look at how good of a job that they do. Well, do you do the same thing for financial investment? Well, let me tell you this. At Paul Winkler, these guys not only educate you, and they have 10 separate offices to serve you, but they also help you implement a plan. They do nothing on commission, which is very important to me and my family. That gives me peace of mind that everything that they do, acting as a fiduciary, is toward my best interest. Only a small fraction of people in the financial industry are truly degreed planners, and Paul believes in this concept to make sure that his people have the training, have the expertise, and have the education, and more importantly, have the ability to communicate what they're doing to you and for your family. 615-851-1950 if you'd like to make the call. 615-851-1950, or go to paulwinkler.com and tell them I sent you. paulwinkler.com for financial security now, tomorrow, and down the road. There's only one I recommend. It's Paul Winkler. It is the Matt Murphy Radio Show underway for hour number 2. Glad to have you with us, 104. Thank you. Hope your libertarian lunch went well. We've got 2 more hours to go. We'll hand off to Brian Wilson in the drive this afternoon. Mandus continues to demand that we retract our statement that he went on a Disney cruise, even though he's on the cruise now. I was sent a photograph of Dan Mandus standing in front of a boat that says Royal Caribbean on it. Which, my goodness, isn't that even worse?
Why is he demanding that it be retracted?
Well, he says that we are misinforming the general public when we suggest that he, over the course of this week, is on a Disney-based cruise. I stand by my reporting.
That sounded totally plausible to me, considering he has a stepson who's, 10?
I think Rocker's 10, maybe 11.
Why would
I think probably 10.
2 parents not go on a Disney cruise with their 10-year-old son?
Well, I don't know if it's specifically a Disney cruise or I don't know. I don't know the name. I mean, I just know that I stand by my reporting from last week.
He needs to be less sensitive.
I fully expect what I think he's trying to get out of is that the staff here at Supertalk 99.7 WTN, to include young McMorey, Ken Weaver, Johnny B, Chris Hand, Matt Murphy, you, Bell K, Brian Wilson, Chris Weber in the after. All of us have expressed our expectation that we'll all get mouse ears with our names on them, little hats. And I just think Mandus is too cheap to come off the dime, is what I think.
I got to push back on that one. When he went on vacation and took Riker to Universal, I got a Harry Potter wand.
Oh, did you now?
Yeah. And those are like $60.
You got a Harry Potter wand?
I did.
What style?
Pretty sure it was Harry's.
Okay. They have a bunch of different ones.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. We talked about this because there are 2 different types. There's the replica wands, which are very, very cool, and they're actually the more expensive versions. And then there are the ones that you can buy that if you do little spells in the right way.
Right. That's what he got me.
You can make things happen within the camp. Well, we need to get you down to Universal, Bell. That's what we need to do. Huh? Little Diagon Alley. Little King's Cross. Hogwarts. Come on.
Sure.
Okay,
Let's go.
I buy it. I'll tell you what. I'll make a deal with you. I'll buy your admission into the park. You buy the drinks.
Who got the worst end of that deal?
You know me well. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. If you'd like to be a part of the show, 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. You can call us. You can also super text the show via the Members Nutrition super text line. I'll get to State Representative Justin Jones in just a moment. By the way, this hour coming up at 1:35, we'll welcome our good friend Steve Abramowitz from Mill Creek View, the Mill Creek View, Tennessee podcast, and Brandon Lewis. Brandon Lewis comes to us. He's got an organized event, a rally that will be happening next week. And he is with Tennessee Conservative Group. We'll talk about his group. We'll talk about the rally itself and anything to highlight the dramatic impact of the open southern border I'm in favor of, and anything that pushes our Tennessee legislature to do everything within their power to stop the flood of illegal immigration, not just in the United States of America, but in the state of Tennessee. I'm in favor of that as well. So we welcome Brandon Lewis and Steve Abramowitz to the show at 1:35 this afternoon. Continuing along the lines of those that would be well-suited to retort to Joe Biden's commentary about illegal immigration the other night at the State of the Union address. We had Joe Biden responding to Joe Biden last hour. Joe Biden from 35 years ago sounds like a different fella. Looks like a different fella, too. That guy was cogent. That guy had no stutter. This guy has a stutter. Is it magical or what that Joe Biden's stutter reappeared? Is it magical or what that now that Joe Biden could not complete a cogent sentence, that suddenly we're excusing that away because, Joe has a stutter. He's always had a stutter. Well, there were years where he had overcome his stutter. I guess those years are done. This guy never had a stutter. As a matter of fact, from the Democrat side of the aisle, he was considered to be a fine communicator. Let's listen Speaking of Mill Creek View, I'll give a hat tip to Steve in Mill Creek View for digging up this piece. This is from a State of the Union just a few years back.
All Americans, not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public service they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more, by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before, by cracking down on illegal hiring, by barring welfare benefits to illegal aliens. In the budget I will present to you, we will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crimes, to better identify illegal aliens in the workplace, as recommended by the commission headed by former Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years, and we must do more to stop it.
Wow. Well, oh, look. Well, standing ovation. Both sides of the aisle standing up and celebrating Bill Clinton. And that's former President Bill Clinton back when State of the Unions were not so angry and mean-spirited, and back at a time when Democrats actually made a little bit of sense on this issue. Now, I would have loved to have seen Democrats put a little more of their money where their mouths were. And you could argue that Bill Clinton was giving a lot of lip service to the issue of illegal immigration, but not a lot of action behind it. But at very least, they gave lip service. Now, the reason that I'm playing you Joe Biden from 35 years ago and Bill Clinton from, I don't know when exactly that was. I don't know what State of the Union it was. It was sometime between 92 and 2000, obviously. So somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 years ago. And I've got one more to go. It was not that long ago that Democrats were not at least reasonable on this issue. I've told the story before, and I'll relate it to this, that I lost friends after Donald Trump became president in 2016. Maybe many of you did as well. I have not changed my basic philosophy of government in quite some time. I believe that government serves best, that serves only when absolutely necessary. That you leave it to the people and our communities in order to self-govern in a civilized society and then govern most locally when necessary. And only when it is up to the state to more broadly govern local communities should they do so. And only when it is under the purview of the Constitution of the United States should the federal government take up any of this. That is my libertarian philosophy of government, and it hasn't changed, hasn't wavered. Democrats have changed, and I dare say Republicans have changed to a certain degree, but not nearly as much as these Democrats that we talk to and hear about so much. So when 2016 came around, and you have your liberal friends, and that's all good. I mean, oftentimes I would hang out with individuals that I knew were of a different political persuasion, but I have a civilized way to do that. You just don't dive too deeply into politics. And then I had more close friends that I grew up with, went to college with, that deviated politically greatly from where I went post-college into my 20s and into my 30s, but we still maintained friendships. We just avoided talking about politics. When we did talk about politics, we'd touch on it lightly, but we always knew, you know what I'm talking about. You get into it, and you always knew when it's getting a little more serious. You always know when maybe we should stop this subject because it's just going to end up with bad feelings. Well, hell, 2016 comes around and all of that stops. The communication stops. I try to text people that I consider to be some of my best friends in the world, and I got nothing in return. Nothing. And it bothered me. It bothered me until I came to the realization that I haven't changed. They did. Now, there are a variety of reasons why that happened. The largest of which, obviously, is that Trump broke them, that Trump derangement syndrome is real. And once you realize that it's not on you, it's on them, it's a liberating deal. I don't know that we have changed our position very much over the last 30 years regarding immigration policy in the United States of America. The first thing that you must do, that we have every ability and every right in the world to do, is to stop the flood of illegal activity coming across the southern border, to shut the border down. And if necessary, shut down asylum claims temporarily in the process. There is nothing that says that we can't do that. Democrats act like that's some sort of third rail that supersedes the Constitution of the United States of America, which is absurd. But they didn't always talk like this. They didn't always believe these things. It wasn't that long ago that there were Democrats that nowadays would seem to be making sense on this issue.
This is not going to be a free ride. It's not going to be some instant amnesty. What's going to happen is you are going to pay a significant fine. You are going to learn English. You are going to go to the back of the line so that you don't get ahead of somebody who was in Mexico City applying legally. But after you've done these things over a certain period of time, you can earn your citizenship, so that it's not something that is guaranteed or automatic. You've got to earn it, but over time, you give people an opportunity. Now, it only works, though, if you do all the pieces. I think the American people, they appreciate and believe in immigration, but they can't have a situation where you just have 500,000 people pouring over the border without any kind of mechanism to control it. So we've got to deal with that.
You hear what he just said there? You hear what the hero of the Democrat
Party
where
you just have 500,000 people pouring over the border.
Try 8 million. Try 8.5 million.
But they can't have a situation where you just have 500,000 people pouring over the border without any kind of mechanism to control it.
Thank you.
So we've got to deal with that at the same time as we deal in a humane fashion with folks who have put down roots here, have become our neighbors, have become our friends. They may have children who are U.S. citizens. That's the kind of comprehensive approach that we have to take.
Now, I disagreed with some of that approach at the time that he offered it. In 2008, as he was running for president of the United States, 2009, as he began his service as president of the United States. I disagreed with some of the premise. It almost comes off as quaint how the Democrat position was so drastically different just 15 years ago, and how dramatically that has changed over those 15 years. Go back 15, go back 25, go back 35, as we have done in those three clips. Senator Joe Biden, President Bill Clinton, President Barack Obama, seemingly making sense. Now, once again, all lip service, and I understand that. I'm not a Pollyanna. But at least they were willing to say the things that they thought would get them votes. They had an understanding about how people would react to their campaign speeches and their campaign promises. Now, not only does Joe Biden claim that he has to allow millions upon millions of illegal aliens to come into this country, their rights seemingly supersede the rights of the American citizenry when it comes to food and housing and other essential and necessary items once they get. It's as if we somehow take some level of ownership of these people, which is absurd. And it's absurd, this suggestion that we have to take them at all. And it's not xenophobic, and it's not anti-brown people to say so. If it is, then Bill Clinton is anti-brown people. Then Barack Obama is anti-brown people. Then 35 years ago, Joe Biden is anti-brown people. It is the number one existential threat in the United States of America right now, today. The watering down of our voting rights, the watering down of our ability to represent ourselves through representation at the state level and at the United States level in the House of Representatives. Last week, Senator Bill Hagerty presented an amendment on a bill that would stop the counting of illegal aliens toward the apportionment process within the United States House of Representatives. And it was shot down by Democrats because that's the plan, folks. They have to deal with the anarchy. They don't really care that much about the death, murder, and mayhem. They want the votes. And the first way you get them is through apportionment. And then once you tilt the teeter-totter to the Democrat side of the ledger with regard to apportionment, then you begin the process of creating citizenship for these folks, and then you got them because you've got the votes. You get to take credit for it. And suddenly you have a huge block of millions upon millions upon millions of voters to lean on to make sure that you never lose the presidency. This is the analysis. This is the premise. This is the reality. And sadly, Republicans for far too long, and I count a lot of good people in this number, Republicans for far too long have just been whistling on the sidelines while it happens because their buddies in the Chamber of Commerce benefit from it, because their buddies in certain industries benefit from it, because they get cheap labor as a result of it. Cheap, good labor, but cheap labor nonetheless. And they don't say a damn thing about it. Well, it's time we demand that good people stand up and stop it and not be bludgeoned over the figurative head when you make that stand with talk about xenophobia or racism and the like. Donald Trump makes that stand. You and I try to make that stand, and we ought to demand more of our elected officials. Your calls on the way, more of your commentary on the way from the Members Nutrition Super Text line as well as we continue on this Monday edition of Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All right, friends, the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. They want to talk to you. I'm taking a trip out to the Dr. Gill Center. I tweaked my back over the weekend. It's got me all out of sorts. But I have a plan of action, and it involves the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. That's the nice thing, is that once they get you back up and running, where you can live day to day in a pain-free fashion, if you ever have need, they're there for you when you need them at the Dr. Gill Center. Located in Franklin, anywhere within the sound of my voice, it's certainly worth the drive. Go see the incredible team that Dr. Gill assembled so many years ago. Folks like Dr. Wendy, Dr. Dominic, Dr. V, and the rest of the staff, they're there ready, willing, and able to help you with your back pain, neck pain, knee pain, hip pain, elbow pain, any pain wherever it hurts. They can assist you getting back to a pain-free life without having to pop pills, without even needing to shoot up with needles, and without the need to consider surgery. So regardless of wherever the pain is, I promise you they can help you with state-of-the-art technology at the Dr. Gill Center. 615-882-4838, 882-4838 for the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. Don't take a pill. Call Dr. Gill at the Dr. Gill Center. Super Talk 99.7 WTN would love to hear from you with regard to our conversation on illegal immigration and how I believe it to be one of the biggest threats to the American way of life that we've seen in quite some time. Long-term existential threat is obviously our overspending and the fact that we're 34 going on. What did you tell me during the break? $34 trillion in debt. What was Joe Biden's budget proposal for next fiscal year?
7.3.
7.3 trillion?
Yes.
Holy moly. Is that the most?
I believe it is, yes.
I would think that's the most. It's a lot of money. It is, we've done these experiments over the years to try to help the smartest listening audience on planet Earth. That would be you. Wrap your head around how much $1 billion is, which is 1,000 million, much less $1 trillion, which is 1,000 billion. The best way, the easiest way, is to do it just that way. $1 million is 1,000,000. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. $1 million is 1,000,000. So if you got, think about $1,000. You got $1,000 in your hand. If you have $1,000 in your hand, you have $1 million. You have a lot of money. $1 billion is 1,000 million. And $1 trillion is 1,000 billion. And now it's a little more difficult to understand how deeply entangled in debt we truly are as a nation. And they speak for us. They supposedly speak for us. Pat is next in Clarksville with a thought on immigration. Hey, Pat, glad you called. How are you?
Well, I'm just ducky. How about you, Matt?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good, good. Well, here's my thought on immigration. You know, the current administration is not going to do squat about it, but when Donald Trump gets in, I think he should transfer all those positions that just entered the IRS, switch them over to personnel to go ahead and round up and deport the people that shouldn't be here. And I think that would help. And then after that, to start working on the budget, or I should say the deficit, you go ahead and get all those non-essential people that that don't have to work when the money goes down, you know, and the government wants to shut down. Get rid of them. They're non-essential. That's my thought.
So you want, bullet point, you want to round them up and send them back, those that are illegal?
Yep. And the ones that are here, that haven't even, you know, first of all, the ones that are criminals, you know, you can check those guys out. I just get rid of them all. They're all illegal right now.
You know, and the criminal element seems to be the easiest to deal with, but part of me gets very frustrated that we import these criminals just to pay for their housing and their foods after we discover the illegal activity and we convict them of it. Does that make sense? I mean,
Yeah.
It's a little bit frustrating that we're now paying for them, and I understand we have to eliminate them from society and they have to pay for crimes committed. Well, I mean, a good example, and thank you for the call, Pat. A good example is this walking piece of garbage that has been accused of the death of Laken Riley. He comes in. He's reportedly a part of a gang. He gets to New York. And they let him go. He gets in trouble with the law. They let him go. He gets down somehow to Georgia, probably in trouble with the law down there as well. And eventually he decides, for whatever reason, to bludgeon a woman to death. He's accused credibly of that. And now we get to foot the bill for the rest of his natural-born life. And all because we can't control immigration status on the southern border. Could if we wanted to. We'll continue the conversation. There's a big rally that's happening next week. I'll let Brandon Lewis and Steve Abramowitz tell you all about that. That's coming up next. 1:30. We'll have that conversation around 1:35 or so on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. The world-famous Glock store is located on Air Lane Drive. That's just off of Elm Hill Pike. It is a short drive from the airport or anywhere within the sound of my voice, and well worth that drive. You know how you can start? You can start at glockstore.com or shoot270.com. You can get a feel for what you're walking into. It is the biggest, the brightest, and the best gun store in Nashville, Tennessee, and it's not even close. See it for yourself at glockstore.com. Now, when you call yourself something like the Glock store, you have to make sure that you have Glocks in stock, and they do, of all sizes, of all shapes, and of all varieties, and they can customize your Glock for you as well. So if you're ready to take that game up a level, they have gunsmiths to do that for you at the world-famous Glock store. Plus, any accessories, any performance parts you're thinking about, they can put those on for you while you wait at the world-famous Glock store. McGill's world-famous Glock store on Air Lane Drive, just off of Elm Hill Pike. Go online and see them at glockstore.com or shoot270.com. Find out how you can get trained up. Owning a gun is one thing. Training to use it is another. And you need to do that at shoot270.com. Their world-famous shooting rooms and trainers are waiting on you. It's the world-famous Glock store. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you. You'll be happy you did. .135 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy and you this Monday. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. We'll hand off to the drive with Brian Wilson right around 3 o'clock. It's 1:35 right now on this beautiful day. It's turned out to be absolutely gorgeous outside. Highs of about 60 or so degrees. Highs getting up into the 70s a little bit later on. And, man, St. Patty's Day right around the corner. It's a beautiful day to be alive in Middle Tennessee. Great to speak to our good friend Steve Abramowitz once again. Steve, of course, is with the Mill Creek View Tennessee podcast. He is a part of an organized event coming up next week, sponsored by and presented by Brandon Lewis and Tennessee Conservative News. And both of these gentlemen join us on the show to talk about the scourge of illegal immigration and what we in Tennessee can do about it. Steve, welcome to the show. Brandon, welcome to the show. Glad to have you gentlemen on with us.
Matt Murphy,
glad to be here.
How are you?
Doing well, doing well. I'm glad to see that you guys are out and about next week regarding immigration, highlighting things that the state of Tennessee can do better and more of to stop illegal immigration in this state if our federal officials will not refuse to stop it at the southern border. Brandon, I want to start with you. Just talk to me about the impetus behind this organized rally and what you hope to accomplish as a result of it.
I'll be brief. You know, we are a tuning fork at the Tennessee Conservative News for GOP primary voters all over the state as the largest alternative news publication. And when we do surveys with clients, or not clients, I'm thinking of my other business. We do survey with subscribers. That when they have to pick the number one issue they're concerned about being fixed at the state level, they pick illegal immigration at like 60% of the time as number one. And so that number one is critically important, but there's nothing really being done about it at the state level. When we ask our subscribers if they think that it's just a federal issue and that the state can't address it, which is what most rhinos will tell you, 99% of them, 99% in a 1,600 person survey agree with that. And you only have to have about 300, Matt, to be relevant in a statewide survey. I used to do that in politics. But since we founded our publication, you know, Bill Lee put that illegal immigration center in our backyard here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where kids were molested and lost, and our reporting got it shut down. They've given professional licenses to illegals. That's the Republican supermajority in Bill Lee. They have brought bills to try to make illegal aliens police officers. That's William Lambert. Our reporting got that stopped. Dale Carr brought a bill that would have weakened E-Verify. We wrote an article. That bill got pulled before it ever got going. But every time there's been a bill to do the four things that we think would really stop illegal immigration in Tennessee, stopping the taxpayer funding of illegal immigration, which costs $577 million a year to Tennessee taxpayers, making E-Verify compulsory for all employment, cutting off the welfare benefits, and really penalizing the companies that mass transport illegals and putting them out of business in Tennessee. That's really what we need to be doing. And so we're having this Protect TN Borders rally to call attention to the fact that the GOP is not doing the will of the people.
I so appreciate highlighting the issue because I do think there's it's one of my favorite phrases, Brandon, whistling past the graveyard. And I think there's a lot, even for good-minded people, there's a lot of whistling past the graveyard in the state of Tennessee with regard to this issue because it's easier to suggest that, you know, if we elect the right people on the federal level, we can accomplish the task that way as opposed to trying to tackle it and do the heavy lifting on the state level necessary to protect the citizens of the state of Tennessee and beyond. At the same time, there seems in your reporting on the story, and you have a much greater basis of understanding of this than I do, just based on my amount of time in Tennessee, there seems to be, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but an insinuation of intent on the part of certain Republicans in leadership in Tennessee. In other words, it's not just that they choose to believe it's a federal issue. It's not just that they don't do the hard work to get these things passed and to go through the judicial process, because there would obviously be lawsuits as a result of some of this stuff, and that's fine. But that they actually want to do the opposite and they want to encourage illegal immigration. Is that, I mean, do you believe that?
Know it to be true. Look at their track record. It's been 3 years, right? And if everything they have done has made it worse, and if every bill that has been brought has been killed by Republican leadership, and if leadership hasn't even brought a bill, like all these bills that have been brought, Matt, have been brought by the few conservatives in the General Assembly that are relegated to obscurity. For example, Bruce Griffey was the last real warrior we had. Well, what happened to him when he brought 4 legal immigration reform bills and actually made us think about it? Cameron Sexton stripped him of his committees. And so when we see that 90+% of donations that come into Republican leadership's coffers, their campaign coffers, comes from outside of their district and from corporate special interests that see illegal aliens as another client and cheap labor. I mean, we don't really have a GOP in Tennessee, Matt. We have a COP. We have a corporately owned party. Between the lobbyist mechanisms, the corporate welfare, I mean, you can see they can call a special session to give Ford Motor Company $2 billion, even though it lost $2 billion in its electric vehicle division. But they can't call a special session or do anything to actually address the one issue that Republican primary voters care about. I mean, come on.
So you're saying, Brandon, that Governor Bill Lee, for example, who was easily reelected the last time around, has pulled the wool over the eyes of this. I mean, so Tennessee voters are dumb to what his true intent is?
I think they are largely misinformed, or I would say low information. You know, Matt, most people go vote out of a sense of civic obligation and duty because they feel guilty if they don't, and they feel like they can't complain if they don't. But I could go outside a polling place, even a polling place, and ask, or even a gas station, ask them, well, who's your state rep, who's your state senator, and here's the other kicker. Name one meaningful piece of legislation that went through the Tennessee House last year, and I bet maybe only 1 out of 10 could even answer that question, because they're so caught up with watching 50 hours of not Fox News every week, listening to 200 hours of podcasts, reading the books, but they don't know what's going on right in their backyard, and they don't know what's going on in Nashville. I think most people see what Bill Lee does on social media, where he takes pictures of himself down at the border, where he says all these strong words, where he might even send a handful of troops down there, which is like peeing in the Atlantic Ocean.
But you're saying, I don't mean to interrupt your train of thought, but you truly believe, Brandon, that all of that's performative, that he is just a complete liar, he's a snake in the grass, and all of that is just a lie. You believe that?
If he authorized an illegal immigration center where kids were molested and lost, even though both sides of the House and the Senate opposed it, you can go look at the documentation. If he will sign bills to give illegal aliens professional licenses, and if every time there's an illegal immigration bill that's actually going to suppress illegal immigration gets brought, the governor sends his minions down there to lobby against it. I'll let your listeners.
Well, no, but I mean, more to the point. I mean, you bring up the border stuff and the fact that he's sending some in the Tennessee National Guard down to support Governor Greg Abbott. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not challenging you on any of this. I'm just fascinated with your belief structure. So you believe, without regard for a re-election, because he's term limited, that all of that's performative on the part of Bill Lee.
Yeah, I mean,
why is he doing that? If he's not running for anything else?
Well, he's doing it because of the image, right? Like, that is a large part of running for office. I've ran about 12.
No, he's not. No, Brandon. I don't mean to interrupt, but he's not running for anything else. So why is he doing that? Why is he doing that now if it's all performative, according to you?
I don't know what performative means, so I'm sorry.
You're saying he's lying to the people of Tennessee when he says that he's against illegal immigration, and you're saying that all of the stuff that he's doing. I mean, that's what you said. I don't want to put words.
That would essentially. I would rather. You cannot. That's like saying I really care about my kids. I really care about my kids. I really care about my kids. But you don't spend any time raising your own kids or handling your own household. But you'll send 50 tutorers or 50 babysitters over to your neighbor's house for their kids. And that's really what Bill Lee's doing. Like, he'll go down there for a show. He could pass 4 or 5 laws that would demagnetize and suggest them that would completely demagnetize Tennessee this session. He could do it if he had the will. And I would think, in closing on this particular part about Bill Lee, you know, he's the worst governor we've ever had for small businesses. More small businesses went out of business during the pandemic than ever before. We're still dealing with the consequences. Terrible narratives were pushed during COVID. In my opinion, Bill Lee's reign in Tennessee will be looked back on by historians as probably the worst governor in Tennessee state history.
And you may be right about it.
But that aside, you think he might want to try to rescue his legacy by at least doing something on this issue before he leaves.
Well, and you might be right about all of the things that you say. I'm just fascinated about the thought process, is why he would spend the time and energy and effort if his motivations are truly nefarious in terms of his desire to see more illegal immigration coming into the state.
Well, there's 2 ways to do it, right? You can do nothing if it's going on, right? That's the same as being complicit. It's like if you watch your neighbor's house get robbed and you don't call anybody and you don't do anything, and then it happens the next day and the next day and the next day. Well, maybe he really is a good person. He just is too lazy to dial the phone, but I'm just saying he could do things in Tennessee. If he really wanted to change something about this, he could do what he's done with other things he really cares about. He could push them.
Well, I appreciate highlighting it, no doubt. I mean, Bill Lee aside, I mean, obviously he's one of the central figures within the Republican Party, but him aside, I mean, you've got good allies in the state legislative process and in the General Assembly that are willing to stand up, and many of them will be at the event next week. Talk to me about some of the elected officials that are stopping by, saying a few words, and promoting these 4 basic concepts that you've promoted at Tennessee Conservative News.
Steve, do you want to take this, or do you want me to take it?
Take it, bro.
Okay. All right. So we got Representative Janice Bowling. We've got Representative Jody Barrett, or not Representative. We got Senator Janice Bowling. We got Senator Mark Pody. We got Representative Jody Barrett, Gina Bulso, Brian Ritchie, Steve Abramowitz. We've got Pamela Furr, who you know from AFP. Me, Steve. We've got Chris Spencer, who is running against Farrell Hale in the Senate as a Senate candidate, the conservative Senate candidate. So we're going to have a good group, and we've got Moms for Liberties coming out. They changed their legislation day to be there with us. So we're going to have a big crowd. We've already got like 250, almost 300 people registered, and I know we'll have more show up. I hope. You know, you never know how these things will go. But my hope is, Mr. Murphy, just like when Matt Walsh came down and gave Tennessee a black eye over the transgender surgeries, the leadership ran out into that limelight and passed the bill that they had killed that Janice Bowling had brought that would have stopped it 2 years ago. And sometimes these guys know what they need to do, and they know what's right. But if they're not politically embarrassed, they just don't do anything. They just don't do anything. And we've seen it time and time again. It's the same thing that happened with the medical freedom special sessions. They weren't going to do anything until people started raising hell. They were going to keep us locked up forever. And so we've just got to get ahead of this stuff if we want things to change.
Well, I appreciate anything that will draw further attention to what's going on the southern border. I mean, I truly believe it's the most direct existential crisis that we face in Tennessee and around the country. If we dilute our ability to vote our conscience and elect those that will best represent us, whether it's been in the General Assembly or in the halls of the United States Congress in Washington, D.C., while they continue to dilute that and utilize our resources as a result, we continue to be the bearers of the brunt of that suffering. And Steve, let me ask you, I mean, obviously your association with Brandon Lewis, your association with Mill Creek View Tennessee podcast, well established. Talk to me about what your hopes are, Steve, what you want to accomplish from the rally. I mean, obviously we want to draw attention to this thing, but anything more specific for you?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for asking. We have 2 people here, right? We got Brandon, who hyper-focus on the state of Tennessee, the borders of Tennessee. That's his deal. If you go to his website, you're going to see a lot of that. My perspective obviously comes from an out-of-towner. I've been here almost 2 years. I've been an observer of all things conservative, all things Tennessee, and that includes making mistakes that if you don't conservatize or republicanize them, it won't be the reddest of red states like it has been. For example, for the last 12 years, there's been a 52% decrease in the homeless veterans in the country, all right? That's my perspective, the country, not just Tennessee. But in the last year, we had a rise of 7.4% in veteran homelessness. Well, Tennessee spent $1 billion to house, educate, EMT. You go down the list. I got a beautiful graphic. I think I gave it to you last time we saw each other that shows $1 billion went to illegal immigrant services. That's money that shouldn't have been spent there. It could have been spent on vouchers for private schools. It could have been spent on anything. And so to Brandon's point about how Governor Lee and the legislature haven't done the right things, they've misallocated our funds, our taxpayer funds, on people who shouldn't be here. And what happens when you do that? Yes, it's not everybody. They're not 100% bad, but you're going to get somebody who moves from New York's custody to Georgia to join his gang member friend and bash in a woman's head on the University of Georgia campus. That's a crime that should never have happened because that person should not have been here, nor should his 2 brothers. In my new state, Tennessee, is to talk to the only people that I know so far that represent these true conservative values, Matt Murphy, Chris Hand, and Pamela Furr, and Brandon Lewis. Where's the Tennessean? Where's ABC, NBC, CBS? Where are all the other people that are also citizens of Tennessee to say, let's not act like D.C. or California or Washington State, where in California, homeless people can get free health care and now free loans for housing while veterans are going homeless. Let's make everyone else act like Tennessee. But Tennessee first has to act like Tennessee, the truest and best republic that Thomas Jefferson said and had, a constitution that defends its citizens. That's why we volunteer, to keep it Tennessee. So that's why I'm involved.
Brandon, I only wish that your rally was at a different time so I could be there. But sadly, I mean, I get it. I understand that you've got to attract the maximum amount of people. I have a little job to do while you'll be at the rally, but I will be there in spirit. Look, I look forward to perhaps talking about, time limitations prevent us from talking about some of the specifics of what you believe the 4 different things that we can do, and I think you've presented it on Tennessee Conservative News, the 4 different things that we can do as Tennesseans. I'm all in favor of the E-Verify. I want every employer. I know that small business owners say that it would be a burden on them. I'm sorry for that, but the importance of making sure that they're hiring legal aliens, legal aliens or legal people, legal citizens is far more important. I'm all about the various planks of this. I think some of them will be a little more difficult for the state to accomplish than others because of some Supreme Court rulings that have come down. But we can get into some of those details at a different time. The biggest takeaway that I want people to leave this interview with is that I'm happy that there are people having these discussions, reminding fellow Tennesseans that there are more things that our General Assembly can do, and if they focus on these issues, they can accomplish some of these things to help at least protect Tennessee as best we can while the federal government goes to hell in a handbasket, frankly.
1 o'clock, March 20th, Capitol steps. We'll hear from all of these wonderful speakers who are actually true lovers of Tennessee beyond what we could ever hope to see in a California or a Washington state, where they're taking away your natural gas, or Denver, where they're asking residents to open their homes to migrants and not calling them illegal aliens, or the federal government flying 230,000 around
so gross.
Like Venezuela, where they emptied their jails. This is like the Cuban, boat lift way back in the day that St. Carter. So Tennessee has a chance here to do the right thing, to be the most conservative, the most Republican state of all 50, and it's not hard. It isn't hard. It's polls very high. It's a win-win. Who knows the real reasons why they vote no for these things, but the answer is the voters want it. So come out on the 20th. I know it's middle of the day. You'll be working. Maybe send a remote and do it live. I'd love to see you. But bottom line is, if Tennessee doesn't do it, where will?
Brandon, thank you for stopping by. Let's get together sometime and we'll talk further about it and any other thing that you want to discuss. I appreciate getting to meet you via the phone, and we'll talk again, friend.
Well, and for your listeners, listen, you've got a man here that is willing to actually talk about this issue on the airwaves. This is an untouchable subject, and only the real conservative hosts will even touch it in Tennessee. And so I appreciate you, Matt, for having the bravery and the courage to bring this to people's attention when so many others wouldn't.
Well, I'm happy to. I mean, and even look, I am a big believer that if we agree on 99 out of 100 things, then we can advance the ball in terms of conservatism or libertarian. We can advance the ball for the benefit of the state of Tennessee far more so than those that are just going to sit on the sidelines and pretend they can't do anything about it. And that is why I appreciate your rally so much, and why I appreciate the conversation so much. Thank you, Brandon.
Amen, brother.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate you as well with Mill Creek View, and we'll see these guys next week on the 20th as they join so many down at the Capitol steps. We'll be back in just a moment. We're running late. It's 1:55 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. I want to talk with you for a moment about Tennessee Men's Clinic. Tennessee Men's Clinic is, simply put, the best when it comes to men-specific or men-only health care, and they have 2 locations to serve you. You know, they got that last location last year, so it's been open a little over a year now, and they are so excited to present to you out in Cool Springs, Franklin area, an opportunity for you to get to their clinic without having to drive all the way to Nashville. Now, that Midtown location's been there since 2014, and they serve men in the same fashion. What do they do? Well, if you're feeling low down or sluggish, if you're feeling low energy, or maybe perhaps you just don't have the vitality or the vigor in certain areas of your life, and you know what I'm talking about. Gentlemen, there's no shame in this game. A lot of men walk through this in their lives, and a lot of men have been benefited by the Tennessee Men's Clinic. They'll get a little blood work. They'll see what's going on inside of your body. They'll check out the exterior of your body as well, and then they'll get to work developing a plan of action that's going to get you back to energy, get you back to motivation, get you back to drive, get you back to the regular you again. TennesseeMen'sClinic.com, TennesseeMen'sClinic.com, or 615-208-9090, 208-9090 for our good friends at the Tennessee Men's Clinic.
2:03. I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. 57 degrees and a beautiful spring day in Nashville. We got a weather forecast coming up in 2 minutes. Right now in Middle Tennessee, Channel 4 has video of the moment a father reunited with his little girl after a days-long search, Amber Alert, and multiple arrests. Anthony Crum drove hours from Murfreesboro to League City, Texas, where 7-year-old Iris Crum was located safe after police say she was taken by her non-custodial mother and stepfather. The mother, Kyla Soretta, and stepfather Ethan Soretta facing felony child abduction charges and custodial interference. 10 passengers and 3 crew members on LATAM Airlines Boeing 787 Dreamliner went to hospitals when the plane landed in Auckland today after a mysterious incident on board. Alex Stone.
As a Dreamliner was flying from Sydney to Auckland, the plane suddenly dropped, apparently not from turbulence. Chilean-based LATAM Airlines calls it a technical event. Passengers say one of the pilots told them gauges went blank in the cockpit and they couldn't fly the plane momentarily. FAA Administrator Michael Whitaker.
We will certainly work with the Australian authorities or the New Zealand authorities to investigate that, and the Chilean authorities. It's obviously not a U.S. flight, but it is in the 787, so we will certainly follow that closely.
And in the nation's capital, a member of President Biden's cabinet stepping down. Karen Travers has details.
Secretary of Housing and Urban Development Marcia Fudge is stepping down from her cabinet position later this month. President Biden says in a statement that Fudge's, quote, vision, passion, and focus on increasing economic opportunity have been assets to our country. He adds he's grateful for her contributions toward a housing system that, quote, works for all Americans, and he wishes her well in her next chapter. Fudge is only the second cabinet secretary to leave the administration. She told USA Today she looks forward to now being a private citizen.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
I was preparing to sing you a song about how March is rebate time at the Safe House, but I don't want to scare you away before I impart with you the very important information that March is rebate time at Nashville Safe House. Save hundreds and hundreds of dollars on a Browning safe, plus rebates of up to $500. And remember, no sales tax on gun safes at the Safe House. Drop by their showroom today and check out the largest selection of safes, not just in the city of Nashville or the state of Tennessee, but Southeast, and I would dare say the United States of America. I can't think of anybody that's bigger. I mean, my goodness, they have over 200 safes right there on the showroom floor. And I said to Mark, Mark, these are a lot of safes. He said, it's not a third of them. I've got another warehouse available for folks. I'm talking gun safes, jewelry safes, home safes. Don't forget storm shelters as well. The Safe House has the only certified safe delivery crews in Middle Tennessee. Do not settle for less. Do not allow some third party to get into your home, move your safe into your home, and get intimately involved and knowledgeable about your property. Why would you do that? You need qualified professional delivery for your safe, and they charge for it at the Safe House because professional delivery costs money. They don't lie to you and tell you that they're embedding it when they're really embedding it into the price of the safe. It's hundreds of dollars on rebates right now with Browning and other brands. Plus, I mentioned no sales tax on gun safes at the Safe House. Go see Mark and his team at the Safe House. They're not just the biggest, they're simply the best. And March is rebate time at the Safe House right on 4th Avenue South in Nashville. Here we are, and here we go. It's hour number 3. Man, time is flying by this Monday edition. Happy to have you with us on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Don't forget to join us on the Super Talk television side of things, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. Everything is up and running. Hello, and a good afternoon. Thank you for being there. Hi, nice to see you. By the way, you can chat with us on the F&M Bank chat feature, always up and running and available for you. Chat at your leisure. You can also go to the Members Nutrition Super Text line and text your thoughts and comments. Many of you have said same with regard to our interview with Brandon Lewis of Tennessee Conservative News and the one and only Steve Abramowitz of the Mill Creek View Tennessee podcast. I appreciate those guys for stopping by and highlighting what is sure to be a big event happening next week on the 20th at the steps of the Tennessee State Capitol. Now, yes, 0725 to answer your question. Yes, this is the Members Nutrition Super Text line. You've found it. You've reached it. Text at your leisure. There are many others of you wishing to opine on the conversation. And I will refuse to make the perfect the enemy of the good in all of this. And I look forward to future conversations, obviously, with Steve. I look potentially forward to future conversations with Brandon Lewis of Tennessee Conservative News. I have disagreements about what he has insinuated would be the motivations of Governor Bill Lee. I don't think Governor Bill Lee is a bad actor, even as perhaps Governor Lee has made some bad decisions in the past. I don't believe that the general population of the state of Tennessee, I do not believe them to be low information voters. So while I could highlight some of those issues regarding some of my disagreements regarding where Brandon is on all of this, I will just simply say that the similarities and our shared belief in the importance of this issue far outweigh whatever disagreements we might have. Now, I would also say this, that some of the issues that Brandon and his team want our lawmakers like Mark Pody, good man, Senator Pody's a good guy. Janice Bowling, I hear great things about Janice Bowling. I've been told that Janice is more of a libertarian than you'll find in the Senate, in the Tennessee General Assembly, and you know that's attractive to me as well. They are there doing the good work, and I appreciate the good work that they're doing on this issue. But when he talks about the 4 state levels or the 4 things that the state of Tennessee can do to stop illegal aliens in the state of Tennessee, number 1 is the issue of stopping funding of illegal alien education. Well, I know that sounds good, and I want to do it, and I understand the concepts behind it, but we have to get something into the court systems because there was a Supreme Court ruling years and years and years ago, and I looked it up. I wasn't familiar with the name of it, but I looked it up. It's Plyler versus Doe in 1982 that declared that you may not make a funding decision based on the legal status of an individual in this country with regard to public education. I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm saying it was decided by the United States Supreme Court, and until such time as it is overturned by the same court, it is going to be leaned on in any lawsuit that would come subsequent of a refusal to fund an individual that could not prove their legal status in the United States of America or in the state of Tennessee. I bring that up to offer a suggestion that some of this is a lot more difficult than just, quote, passing a bill. And I think there are good people in the General Assembly that understand that. I'm not accusing Brandon of anything other than being a good advocate for what he believes will benefit the people of the state of Tennessee. I wouldn't do that. I would not challenge his motives. And I don't know that it advances the cause necessarily to challenge the motives of other sitting lawmakers by referring to them as rhinos or whatever. But that's none of my business because I'm not a Republican. Nor am I conservative, although Brandon was nice enough to categorize me as that. And that's all well and good, too. I align myself with conservatives far more than any other political affiliation or any other political ideology. And so I consider myself in good company if I'm in the company of conservatives. 615-737-9986 for any thought on that. Just want to highlight March 20th, the overwhelming issue of illegal immigration needs to be focused on as much as we possibly can. Whatever small or ancillary differences of opinion or disagreements we have about motivation are just that. I want to highlight the important stuff. In the meantime, speaking of highlighting the important stuff, I begged of Mac Morey to stand by his microphone in the Super Talk 99.7 WTN News closet. And because I understand that there's some movement that Tennessee Titans fans might be appreciative of and might give us a sense of what we can expect in the coming years, especially regarding the backfield of the Tennessee Titans offense. What do you got, Mac Morey, over there?
That is true. Running back Tony Pollard, who was with the Dallas Cowboys, has signed on to the Titans on a 3-year, $24 million deal. The Titans also, pursuing offense today, two moves. They have come to terms. We haven't had the terms released yet on the exact specifics of the deal, but center Lloyd Cushenberry, who played multiple years with the Denver Broncos, also going to come and join the front line of the Titans. So really loading up on places that they needed to. So Tajay Spears, star rookie running back for the Tennessee Titans, who they drafted, is now going to have his lead guy, maybe his partner in the backfield in Tony Pollard. These are two running backs who can catch passes, which is huge for Brian Callahan. This will be a pass-first offense. They'll be really diverse running backs. You're never really going to know what's coming. Whereas if Derrick Henry was in the game, we were running the ball. Tajay Spears was in the game, we were passing the ball. That's now changed.
What does it mean for someone who's a huge fan but not an expert such as yourself? And if you don't believe that Mac Morey is an expert on these things, you need to get over to the podcast, available wherever you download your podcast, and that's called Behind the Bench. What is it called?
It's Behind the Box Score, wherever you get your podcast.
It's called In the Blimp.
There is a blimp on your little graphic, isn't there?
There is.
Oh, look who's been looking at the podcast. Behind the Box Store, available wherever you get your podcast. There, Mac Morey.
Yep.
So, as an expert of all things sports, what does it mean when someone says he's a 3-down back? So I hear this all the time. Well, Derrick Henry, he's not a 3-down back. But what we need is a 3-down. Ooh, Spears is a 3-down. I mean, yeah. I think I'm saying that right. What does that mean?
It's just the ability to be able to catch passes out of the backfield, run routes, block pass protection, and as well run the ball inside the tackles, outside the tackles. Really an all-purpose back, a guy who can do a little bit of everything. Whereas Derrick Henry, one of the best running backs to ever see the field, but he really is. His strengths are within a couple of categories, right? He's really good at straight line speed, breaking tackles in between the tackles on the inside. Can't go as much to that C gap outside the tackles as much as he used to. And he definitely is not a great pass catcher. He's not running routes, definitely not running a route more than 3 or 4 yards outside away from the flat. So it just gives you more flexibility if you've got a 3-down back.
In other words, if it's 3rd and 6 and Derrick Henry's standing in the backfield, I don't really have any fear.
Not scared.
That Derrick Henry's getting the ball.
Exactly.
And so it eliminates that element of the game, whereas if you had someone that's a better back out of the back to swing around and catch a pass, wheel route or whatever, or swing or route out into the flat. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, and now it doesn't matter whichever running back's in for the Titans. Both of those guys can do that on 3rd and 6 or 3rd and 5. And now this opens up the ability to have both those running backs on the field at the same time.
For Titans fans, this announcement while they are not necessarily coupled together. I mean, it's an obvious indication that it's the end of an era for them.
Yes.
So it's a little bit of a bittersweet announcement.
It is. This basically all but confirms that Derrick Henry's days with the Tennessee Titans have ended. We pretty much knew that, right? There were reports that came out on Friday that said, hey, this is going to be done. Basically, Derrick Henry's not going to be a Titan. And he had his goodbye speech at the last game of the regular season against the Houston Texans here at Nissan Stadium. So we all pretty much knew it, but there was still that, that glimmer of hope, right? That, hey, maybe things work out and he doesn't find another destination. He comes back and provides Will Levis a more than formidable guy in the backfield, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
What was Tennessee, or what does Tennessee pay Derrick Henry? Do you know off the top of your head?
Well, right now he's a free agent. But before that, I'd have to look up his exact contract.
I mean, will this be less money for Pollard? Do you feel like? I know I'm putting you on the spot when I ask you these questions.
So yeah, 3-year, $24 million. I think it was $15 or $16 million guaranteed, which is decent money.
And he's a younger guy.
Yep, young guy in his prime. Struggled with some injuries last year. He's going to be coming back healthy. And frankly, I mean, the ceiling for Tony Pollard's through the roof. Yes, it's a decent amount of money, but this guy's young in his prime, and you can pair him up with Tajay Spears, shore up this offensive line. There's some really possibilities for some bright futures with that signing. As far as Derrick Henry goes, I think Derrick Henry will make more money this season, but he will get a 1-year deal. He'll probably get a 1-year, $10 million deal for a contender.
You want to put him for the bet. I mean, for those of us who appreciate Derrick Henry for what he did for the football, for what he did for the Titans, and all of those things, you want the best for him too. So the best case scenario for him, get yourself in a 1-year deal with a potential contender so maybe you can contribute to going for a ring.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a chance, Pollard comes from the Cowboys. There's a big chance that we have a running back switch. The Cowboys bring on Derrick Henry. That's very plausible.
Well, for football fans, I mean, I know we don't do sports necessarily on the radio station, but and certainly not on our show. We focus our ultimate blood sport is politics. But a couple of moves, right?
Big
so you got the moves
today
from the Tennessee Titans. Are you a fan of what the Steelers did?
I am. I like, bringing on Russell Wilson. This is a guy who I say was a part of the worst trade in NFL history, right? The Denver Broncos bringing him on. They're going to pay him $90 million over the next 2 years to go away. Don't come here. But the Steelers, they get the benefit of a guy who was pretty average last year. They're going to pay him $1-something million and pay him nothing.
I mean, yeah, the Broncos are paying essentially his entire salary.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so, I mean, it's for the Steelers, it's like, okay, if we can light a fire underneath Russell Wilson and somehow get back to Seattle Seahawk Russell Wilson, we have gotten a steal, friends. And everything around him is pretty darn good in the Steelers camp, isn't it?
They have a good defense. They have a couple solid wide receivers. The offensive line could use a little improvement, but they have money to do that they're saving with this Russell Wilson signing. They're not using any picks trying to garner another quarterback in a trade. And speaking of getting another quarterback, I mean, what a great idea. Maybe trading up from pick 20. There's 4 or 5 quarterbacks that go in the first round. You can find your guy of the future and have your bridge quarterback, have Russell Wilson on a cheap deal for a whole year to still win some games, still be competitive, and possibly get into the playoffs. So, yeah, I like this signing. I mean, people were torching Russell Wilson. They are always going to now after what's transpired these past 2 years. But for $1 million, sign me up.
And finally, while we're on the issue of quarterbacks, have you seen?
Yes.
Have you seen
I was going to say, we got to talk
report?
about this. We got to talk about this.
All right, tell everybody what the latest report is with the Falcons.
Kirk Cousins going to the Falcons on a 4-year deal, $100 million guaranteed. I think he's going to get $90 million of those dollars in the next 2 years. This guy he's going to be the highest paid quarterback of all time when it's all said and done. He's won 1 playoff game in the last 12 years. But, good for Kirk Cousins. This is exciting, and good for the Falcons. This is an improvement upon...
Is he that good of a quarterback?
No. He's not.
I mean, $25 million a year?
Yeah. Oh,
for Kirk Cousins?
For Kirk Cousins. What? Yeah, they're going to be better. He's going to be better than Desmond Ridder. They've got a solid team. It's a terrible division in what is a weak conference right now. But, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of money, man, for a 35-year-old quarterback who just tore his Achilles. He's 35? Yes.
Holy moly.
And, again, most of this money is coming to him when he's 35 and 36. They're going to have a really easy out once he turns 37. So, you got to look into the depths of the deals here to really find out, okay, where's this money? When's this money being allocated? When can we get rid of them? Things like that. If you're the Falcons.
When can we get out of this horrible deal that we just inked 20 minutes ago? That's classic Falcons.
That's it.
You know what? Now that I'm a Titans man, I love seeing the Falcons take a beating.
Right? There you go.
You know, the quicker some of those incredible pieces on offense get the hell out of there, the better for them.
Exactly right.
Better for them. It's a world of disappointment being a Falcons fan. Trust me when I tell you. Thank you for that sports report, Mac Morey. I appreciate that. It is 2:22 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Your reaction to our conversation with Brandon Lewis and Steve Abramowitz and the general concept of illegal immigration and whether or not the state of Tennessee can do more about it. Plus, George Stephanopoulos. I've long said, if you remember anything I say on this show, remember this. Democrats would be ashamed of themselves if they had any, but they don't. George Stephanopoulos is an example of that, and I'll share that example with you next. You know, I've long said 2 times a year I have the easiest job in the world when I talk about Jeff Eddy and efficient heating and cooling. It's when it's maintenance time. You know, in the early fall, it's maintenance time for your heater. And in the early spring, and I know it's not technically spring until March 21st, but in the early spring, it's time to talk about getting that AC checked up. And Jeff Eddy has the best deal going. No matter how many units you have, maybe you've got a couple of units for your home, you know, one for upstairs, one for downstairs. Maybe you've got a guest house or a pool house where you have a unit there. No matter how many units you have, Jeff Eddy will never charge you over $125. He will bring a certified technician out to your home. They will maintenance your home. They will make sure that the AC is running as it should. They'll make sure that they identify any issues that might come up along the spring into the summer to make sure that you don't have an untimely breakdown, and they'll do so for less than $125. And as a matter of fact, for most sales calls, Jeff likes to remind you of this. For most sales calls, for maintenance calls, it's going to cost less than $125. He's just capping it, saying it's never going to cost more. That's what they do at Efficient Heating and Cooling. I mean, this is the same company that never charges you overtime rates, no matter what time it is when you make the call to Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling. He knows that your AC or your heater doesn't know what time it is, so why should you have to pay more based on the time that it breaks down? Go to efficienthvac.net. That's efficienthvac.net. Or call 615-784-4424. 784-4424 for Efficient Heating and Cooling. Hello. How's everybody?
Hello.
You feeling good? Everybody doing okay this Monday afternoon? 2:27, almost 2:28, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Matt Murphy, and this is the Matt Murphy Show, at least until 3 o'clock when we hand over to The Drive and Brian Wilson. Jimmy is in the borough. Jimmy joins us next. Hey, Jimmy.
Hey, Matt. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah.
Could you possibly explain the mechanics of redistricting and what the Democrats might do with that, and does it impact November coming up? And also, do they have to physically vote to be captured in that redistricting? How does it work?
So you're talking about broadly how districting works state to state and how illegal aliens could affect it?
Exactly.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I mean, so it's as simple as this. Every 10 years, the Constitution says that every 10 years we need to count the number of people that we have in the United States. And it does not make a distinction between citizens and non-citizens. It says specifically people in terms of the representation that an individual state would get. So every 10 years on the zeros, we begin the process of the census. And once that's complete, each state takes that census data and the federal government lays that over the United States and considers the 435 members that we have in the House of Representatives, and we apportion representation based on population of the individual states. For example, if Tennessee proportionately were to gain population and it gets to a certain point, it would trigger us having a new representative in the state. And it doesn't matter if those people are legal citizens or illegal aliens. It's people. It's households and it's people. It's not citizens. So
how do they grab it at that point as a party? Which party grabs it? How do they do that?
What do you mean? Which party grabs it?
Well, if it's just a number, if it's a body and they're counting and they're doing census, how do they use that to their advantage? Democrats, for instance, use that to their advantage. I'll give you an example. So right now there's a suggestion that there's a flood of illegal aliens coming into the United States. So how this functionally works is, let's say they're flooding into California, just flooding California. And I'm just using this as an example. California's already blue. California's never not going to be blue, or at least in the foreseeable future, it's not going to be blue. By blue, I mean they are a stronghold of Democrats. Well, how does that benefit Democrats then? Well, because you say, well, illegal aliens can't vote. They don't have the legal right to vote in our elections, but they do have the opportunity to be counted in the census. So next census comes along, if California has 4 or 5 more million people, they will, and I'm making these figures up, so don't hold me to it. They could, get 1 or 2 more seats in the House of Representatives. That's going to be, if they draw the district lines the way that I think they will, that's going to be 1 or 2 more liberals in Washington, D.C. in the House of Representatives. So that seat, because the seats are capped at 435, has to come from somewhere. And one would suggest that it would probably come from a purple or even a red state. And so if you take those seats and take them from a red state like Tennessee and hand them to a state like California or Illinois or New York State or another good Florida. Florida, you could tip a state from red to purple to blue based on how you draw the lines and how you apportion the lines. So am I answering your question? I hope I am. Yes. Does it factor in whether it's urban or suburban areas that they're flooding into?
No. So once the allocation, it's my understanding, and someone will, I know, correct me if I'm wrong in this. I would have to brush up on it. But once the population is counted, once the census is certified, then you apportion the numbers in the House of Representatives accordingly. And it is up to the individual state legislatures to then draw the congressional district lines in a manner of their choosing. So it would matter as to whether or not the state legislature would be red or blue, depending on how exactly they apportioned those lines as to whether or not they focused on the urban areas or the suburban areas.
So whoever has the majority would have that decision process?
Yes.
Whichever party.
I mean, well, in effect, I mean, obviously the minority party would have a say in the drawing of the lines, and it has to go through judicial review. The only caveat here is that you can't, like, say, for example, the state of Tennessee, we have 9 districts, I think that's right, and 2 senators. So you can't have one district that has a lot more people in it than another district from a congressional apportionment standpoint. In other words, the districts have to be geographically, they can look very, very different, but from a population standpoint, there are parameters that you have to fall in under. You can't have too much variance, Jimmy.
Okay. I appreciate you answering that. Thank you.
And it's my pleasure. I feel that I've done an inadequate job. I'm going to reflect on it during the newscast because we got to get to that. And then if I feel like there's any gaps or if you have any other questions, 615-737-9986.
Minutes after the hour of 2 o'clock, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. 57 degrees in Music City. Got a weather forecast on the way in 2 minutes. Former President Trump is seeking a delay in his trial in the 2016 hush money case. In court filings in New York today, Trump's lawyers argue the U.S. Supreme Court should first rule on Trump's presidential immunity claim. The criminal case against him is scheduled to start March 25th in New York State Court. Here's Aaron Katersky.
The former president's attorneys have said that because the Supreme Court is still going to take up his argument that he cannot be tried for conduct that occurred while in office, that this case should be put on pause. Unlike his federal cases, Trump is not saying here the case over a hush payment to Stormy Daniels should be dismissed. He's just saying that certain evidence might have to be excluded if the Supreme Court rules in his favor.
And right now in Tennessee, a man is on the run after police say he arranged to have sex with a 13-year-old girl. He was set up by undercover cops and got away. Shelbyville police say 26-year-old Robert Austin Morum nearly ran over officers in the process. Moorman has outstanding warrants for solicitation of a minor, attempted aggravated statutory rape, aggravated assault, evading arrest by motor vehicle, and driving on revoked 8th offense. And a bill that would force the divestment of the popular video sharing app TikTok is expected to come up for a vote in the House this Wednesday. Stephen Portnoy.
The bill requires China-based ByteDance to sell TikTok within 6 months of enactment. If the popular service isn't sold, the bill would make it illegal for TikTok to be offered on app stores. In response, the company has urged its 170 million users to contact members of Congress. But the pushback has only emboldened TikTok's critics, who say that kind of power, motivating Americans to take political action, shouldn't rest with a firm that operates subject to China's strict control.
And that is the latest news. Weather forecast next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Friends Savory Spice is obviously a spice store. It's right there in their name. It's obviously savory. It's also right there in the name, but it's much, much more than that, and I want to tell you about it right now. Matt Murphy for Savory Spice. 2 locations to serve. One is at L&L Market in Nashville, just off Charlotte Pike. The other's in Franklin, just off the square next to Gray's Pharmacy. When you walk in, you'll smell it before you see it. I mean, as you walk through the door, you smell the delicious blends of spices, not just from all over the country, but all over the world. And for any culinary taste, they have spices that are right for you. They'll section them out. I mean, for you lovers of Mexican food, and I consider myself among you, they've got some delicious taco seasoning blends and whatnot. If you like Italian, they've got that going on. If you like, Middle Eastern food, they've got that going on. Indian food, they got that going on. I mean, whatever your taste buds are telling you, they have the right spices for you. But they're much more than that. They're a gift shop. They can, for any chef in your life, you can find something that's just right for them. But really, if you are just beginning your food journey and you want to learn more about the kitchen, they can help you out there as well. I mean, many, many things to brag about Savory Spice. One that I like to brag about, they are locally owned and locally operated. I love that as well. You'll see oftentimes Holly and or David right there in the shop when you walk through the doors and say, "Hello, Matt sent me to Savory Spice." You up your food game by upping your spice game, folks. And you up your spice game at the one and only Savory Spice. Friends, it's as simple as this. You don't know what you don't know, and what you don't know might can hurt you. Now, I know you don't want to believe that. In our regular lives, we don't want to believe that, but it is true. What you don't know can hurt you, especially when it comes to your health. It's time to know what you don't know through Kraft Body Scan. Kraft Body Scan is brand new to Nashville. They've been around for just over a year now, but they are not new technology. The CT scan technology has been improving on a regular basis over the years since they've been in existence, and they started as a company in 2017. What do? Well, as simple as I can put it, they look inside of your body, they check it out to make sure that everything's A-OK. And long before you would feel symptoms for your heart, for your lung issues, for any issue that might be going on inside of your body, they will be able to pick up abnormalities and be able to report those to you really, really quickly. $149. That is the cost for a heart and lung screening at Kraft Body Scan. Find out more at craftbodyscan.com. craftbodyscan.com, or make the call that so many others have made and schedule. And by the way, this is a value of over $1,300 per scan, and for you and a loved one, it's only $149 for the month of March. That's an incredible value. Go to craftbodyscan.com, as I mentioned, spell craft with a C, or give a call today at 615-436-1000, 436-1000 for our good friends at Kraft Body Scan. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Man, oh man, I haven't scratched the surface. It's why we have from 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. local conversation going on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Because Brian Wilson, I am sure, will get to those stories that I haven't gotten to. But I've got a couple of minutes to get to as many as possible because we've just got a plethora of conversation points to get to in political news and otherwise. So over the weekend, ABC News' George Stephanopoulos decided to play gotcha with a rape victim, which is that's always a good play, isn't it? George Stephanopoulos sat down with Representative Nancy Mace, who is on board as backing Donald Trump, and he decided to ask Nancy Mace a question about rape. For those who do not know, Nancy Mace has been open about how she was a rape victim at the age of 16. This from George Stephanopoulos on ABC this week.
Morning. You've endorsed Donald Trump for president. Judges and two separate juries have found him liable for rape and for.
By the way, just so you know this, because it will infuriate you as it did me, they have not found him liable of rape. No judge has found Donald Trump liable of rape. The dishonesty of George Stephanopoulos is unbelievable here. On, by my count, 10 separate occasions, he said on national television that Donald Trump was found liable for rape in the E. Jean Carroll case. He says the jury found Trump liable for rape, and that is not true. It's just not. As much as liberals want it to be true, it's not true. As a matter of fact, the jury specifically found Trump not liable for rape. They found him liable for sexual abuse, something that Donald Trump adamantly denies. The judge in the case, an anti-Trump judge, later on tried to spin it all, citing underlying law that did not apply to the case applicable to the jury verdict. By the way, this was in civil trial. To argue or to state emphatically, as George Stephanopoulos did, that Trump was liable for rape in the absence of an actual jury finding him liable for rape is wrong. And I think it's libelous, but whatever. Stephanopoulos, in spite of the jury's written finding that he was specifically not found liable for rape, on 10 occasions said that he was found legally liable for rape. And as was asked by the Washington Examiner's Byron York, why not just be accurate? Does it not sound as good to you? Does it make you feel good to say things that aren't true, to try to make your point and to try to shame a rape victim like you tried to shame Nancy Mace?
Defaming the victim of that rape. How do you square your endorsement of Donald Trump with the testimony we just saw?
Well, I will tell you, I was raped at the age of 16. And any rape victim will tell you, I've lived for 30 years with an incredible amount of shame over being raped. I didn't come forward because of that judgment and shame that I felt. And it's a shame that you will never feel, George. And I'm not going to sit here on your show and be asked a question meant to shame me about another potential rape victim. I'm not going to do that.
It's actually not about shaming you. It's a question about Donald Trump.
No, you are shaming me.
You've endorsed Donald Trump for president.
Right.
Donald Trump has been found liable for rape by a jury.
Not true.
Donald Trump has been found liable for defaming the victim of that rape by a jury. It's been affirmed by a judge.
It was not a criminal court case, number one. Number two, I live with shame. And you're asking me a question about my political choices, trying to shame me as a rape victim, and I find it disgusting. And quite frankly, E. Jean Carroll's comments when she did get the judgment, joking about what she was going to buy, it makes it harder for women to come forward when they make a mockery out of rape, when they joke about it.
Doesn't it make it harder for women to come forward when they are
It makes it harder when other women
candidates?
joke about it, and she's joked about it. I find it offensive. And I also find it offensive that you're trying to shame me with this question.
I'm not trying to shame you
at all.
In fact,
I have dealt with this for 30 years. You know how hard it was to tell my story 5 years ago when they were doing a fetal heartbeat bill and there were no exceptions exceptions for rape, incest, rape or incest in there. I had to tell my story because no other woman was coming forward. No rape victims were represented. And you're trying to shame me this morning.
I'm just asking.
And I find it offensive, and this is why women won't come forward.
Women won't come forward because they're defamed by those who perpetrate rape.
What a scumbag.
They are judged and they're shamed, and you're trying to shame me this morning. I think it's disgusting.
I'm not shaming you at all. I
told my story. It took me 25 years to tell my story. I was judged for it. I still get judged for it today.
I'm asking you.
So the back and forth continued. I think there's a little overlap here, but I want to continue the back and forth because I think it's important. One, Representative Nancy Mace is an incredibly courageous person. For being willing to stand up to her political party with regard to exceptions for rape and incest based on her backstory and the fact that she was raped at the age of 16. Number two, George Stephanopoulos, it's not enough of a scumbag. He's not enough of a scumbag to tell the story accurately and to still attempt to shame Nancy Mace, which is exactly what he's trying to do. How can you endorse somebody who's accused of doing this? You're trying to shame her into renouncing her personal choices for president of the United States based on activity that he vehemently denies that reportedly occurred some 25 or so years ago in a department store in New York City. And that, as flimsy as the accusations were, they did not find him in a civil court liable for rape like you suggest.
I still get judged for it today.
I'm asking you a very simple question.
And I answered it. You're shaming me for my political choices.
I'm asking you a question about why you endorse someone who's been found liable for rape.
It was not a criminal court. It was a civil court.
It was a civil court.
And by the way, she joked about the judgment and what she was going to do with all that money, and I find that offensive.
I'm asking you
but
about
as a rape victim who's been shamed for years now because of her rape, you're trying to shame me again by asking me this political question.
You've repeated that again.
I think it's offensive. As a woman, I find it offensive. My political choices, I've endorsed the man that I believe is best for our country. It's not Joe Biden. And you looked at the dueling rallies yesterday in Georgia. Laken Riley's family was with Donald Trump. They weren't with Joe Biden. The same guy yesterday that apologized for calling her killer an illegal, who wasn't illegal. And here you are trying to shame a rape victim. I find it disgusting.
Good for you, Representative Nancy Mace. What an incredible testimony and what an incredible voice, not just for women, but for conservative women. A voice that the liberal media consistently attempts to shame vis-a-vis rape or otherwise. It's 2:50 on Super Talk. Winding down our portion of the broadcast day, but never you fear. I leave you in capable hands. He is the man, the myth, the legend. Some would say he has ants in his pants. I don't know. His name is Brian Wilson, and he joins us to tell us what's happening on the drive. Not to bury the lead.
Bell anything. While we were in the commercial break, I was telling Bell how it seems that I have ants in my studio. They're little sugar ants. I don't know where they're coming from because there would not be any sweets in here.
Oh, no. Perish the thought.
Because, I'm not allowed to have sweets in the studio. The band wife said it's not allowed. So I don't, but actually, I really don't know where they're coming from. Yesterday, or earlier, it was ladybugs, and today it's ants. So I guess I'm going to have to call the fumigator, come in here and take care of all this.
Well, I am certain for the next 4 hours, you're going to demonstrate a level of professionalism unknown to me from noon until 3, and you're going to plow through even with ants all over your facility there.
No ants or no ladybugs are going to stop me from bringing you the truth as I can best discern it. We've got a lot of stuff going on. 2024, all kinds of stuff I want to talk about. We're going to visit the swamp. Marsha Blackburn will be joining us at 4:35 this afternoon. So a whole lot of stuff that we've got lined up for the drive this afternoon.
I cannot wait. Did you happen to catch this Stephanopoulos back and forth between he and Representative Nancy Mace?
And I've seen sometimes when you're in the anchor chair and you go after somebody and you ask a question and and then if you don't get a satisfactory answer, I've always said it's no sense beating a dead horse, just move on. But he just wouldn't let it go, and she gave well more than she got.
Good for her,
and did a great job in sort of putting him in his place. But yeah, it got into a thing where he got his back up, and he wasn't going to back down, and he wasn't going to lose, and he just came off looking like a jackass.
Well, if anybody knows jackasses, it's me, Brian Wilson, and I concur with your analysis. Listen to Brian Wilson for the next 4 hours, and I promise you're going to come out of that more educated than you went into it, and I know I will be doing the same as you. He's coming up right after Mac Morey's newscast, and Mac Morey's newscast is coming up right now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Enjoy the drive with Brian Wilson. I'll be here at high noon tomorrow for another, what I hope to be, award-winning broadcast. Until then, hug your loved ones. So long, everybody.